listening to Austinpreneur, a podcast highlighting Austin startups, entrepreneurs, and innovators. Discover the importance of your network, meet the people supporting your journey, and connect with the community making it all happen. To learn how we do it, visit capitalfactory.com.
Awesome. Well, I'm here with the Honorable Secretary of the Army, Dr. Mark Esper. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Josh. Good to be here.
He is a decorated airborne infantry officer who fought in the Gulf War, Civil War, where that came from.
Not that old.
Mark, when I look at your Wikipedia entry, it's pretty obvious why you're the guy for this job, because it seems like you've worked in every different possible area of the military, civil, and private parts of defense work. So I get why they picked you. But thank you for your service.
Thank you.
The Army Futures Command, as I've been told many times now, is the largest reorganization of the Army in the past 45 years. It involves the creation of a new 4-star command, which we celebrated today with General Murray. And when most people think back to the beginnings of Austin as a tech city, they look back to the creation of this thing called MCC and Sematech. You may have heard of that while you're here a little bit. And that was back, I think, in the 70s and 80s. And it was people like George Kosmetsky and Pike Powers, who was at the reception today, and Admiral Bobby Inman. And it really was an inflection point for Austin in setting the direction for the next decades to come. And from everything that I've learned so far about what Army Futures Command is, I think that 20 or 30 years from now, we're going to look back on today and this as a similar kind of inflection point for Austin and what it brings here. So that's really exciting. So to help us understand that, obviously we've heard it different ways, but from you, why is this such a big deal? What is Army Futures Command?
Well, I'll pick up where you left off. We are at a strategic inflection point in the military, both with regard to what's happening around the world, what's happening strategically with regard to other nations. The National Defense Strategy tells us that we are now in an era of great power competition. So it means we have to do things differently. And one of the fundamental things we need to do differently is to outfit our soldiers with the latest tools, equipment, and weapons so that they can fight and win on future battlefields. To do that, we know the current acquisition system we have now is an industrial age one. And if we're going to be able to deliver on time, on schedule, which means these days much more quickly, much greater capability at a better price, then we got to overhaul how we do our modernization practices. So Futures Command, its establishment, is to pick up on this moment in time, this strategic inflection point, and to do something radically different with regard to how we not only procure weapons and develop them, but really how we conceptualize them, how we think about future warfare to make sure that we are building or acquiring what we need for those future fights.
And for the startup people who maybe aren't as familiar with government terms and military titles, why is a 4-star command such a big deal? I mean, I was at the reception today. There were a lot of stars in that room. There, a lot of people with stars on there, but not so many 4 stars. Why is a 4-star such a big deal?
So the Army currently has 4 major commands. The previous 3 were Forces Command, Training and Doctrine Command, and Army Material Command. And so think about those original 3. Those are the 3 that were formed beginning in 1973. Forces Command ensures the readiness of our forces. Army Material Command provides its logistics, it sustains us, and Training and Doctrine Command trains it. We never had, until today, a command that equipped the force. And so what you want is a commander and a command that is on par with regard to rank, when you mentioned a 4-star, but also the resources they have at bay, the authorities, to really work alongside those peers and those other lines of effort to make sure that we are providing our soldiers everything they need, equipment, training, materiel, to fight and win.
So the new 4-star general is General Murray.
General Mike Murray, that's right.
And we saw heard his remarks earlier today, and he was promoted today. Why is he the right guy for the job?
He's a really good pick. As the Chief of Staff said, first of all, he has the character to do the job. He's extremely competent. He's commanded from everything from the platoon level through the division level. He's been in peacetime and in combat. But maybe more relevant in the near term with regard to this job is for the past 2 or 3 years, he's been what's called the G8. And the G8 is in charge of requirements for the Army. He is the one in that current job that was thinking about what are the future needs we need for the Army to fight and win. He had worked very closely with the acquisition community. He is one of the original persons who drew up the Army Futures Command. And so he knows very well that environment. He certainly knows DC, and because a big part of his role will be explaining what Futures Command does to the American people, to Congress, and to our higher headquarters. So he brings all those capabilities, plus he brings an openness and inclusiveness which is perfectly situated for what we want to do here in Austin, similar to what all the great work you're doing, Josh, with Capital Factory.
Oh, thank you. Well, we're looking forward to welcoming him and his family here to Austin. So the Army Futures Command has 6 main priorities that have been identified. Long-range precision fires, next-generation combat vehicle, I'm not going to test you on them, I had to write them down, future vertical lift,
I know them all.
Mobile network, air and defense, missile defense, and soldier lethality.
That's right.
And now those are all kind of specific areas. I'm curious, a big topic I know for the military and that we hear about a lot is artificial intelligence. How does that fit into that?
Right. Well, let me say this first. The 6 priorities are based on our research of what we believe the future will hold based on some of our strategic competitors, such as Russia and China. It's what we've witnessed on the battlefield and other areas around the world. It's what our intelligence tells us where our adversaries may be going. Fundamental to many of those technologies, and I'll pick out one in particular, the next generation combat vehicle, is AI. And arguably AI will come across all systems. But with regard to the next generation combat vehicle, what the vision that the chief and I put out in June says is that by the year 2028, we want to field a next generation combat vehicle. And not just the one you've seen in the past, but one that is capable of semi-autonomous or full autonomy. And to do that takes a good deal of AI.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that makes a lot of sense. So when we look back, there are so many things that the commercial sector has benefited from military research. Obviously, the internet itself was created by DARPA. We look at our iPhones and we know that there's all kinds of technology that came out of research that came out of the Army.
That's the 20th century model. It's now flipped.
Right. Well, I do know that's where it's going. But on that note, when I look at these priorities, there are some things on here that aren't there yet, like future vertical lift. Could the research comes out of that be what finally gets us the flying cars that we've always been promised?
Sure, I think so. We will put a lot of investment into future vertical lift. It will allows us to get performance beyond what a traditional rotary wing helicopter does and promises. And again, much like I just said with regard to the combat vehicle, we want to build an aircraft which is either semi-autonomous or fully autonomous. And that's where it gets to, the flying car. If you have a fully autonomous flying car, one can imagine a future where the family just gets in the vehicle and it takes them off.
Yeah.
And you're not bound by pavement.
So I want to touch on the point you just made about, hey, the way it used to work was the military developed it and then the private sector took it, but you talked about how some of that's flipping now.
Sure.
And the term I've heard a lot lately is dual use. That the military, one of the reasons that they're looking for here is things that are in the commercial sector that can also be used for the military. And so what kinds of industries do you think are most interesting? Where are the gaps that we have for innovation and industries here? I
think the biggest area where we know that is true is communications. The military simply can't compete with the private sector, I believe, when it comes to the innovation happening with regard to communication systems, whether it's voice or data. It's just moving too quickly. It's the innovation, it seems to me, you would know better, is measured in months. And if we take a traditional approach to procuring things, we'll never be able to catch up. We will fall further behind. And so that's one area where we're definitely doing a lot of commercial off-the-shelf purchasing or working a lot more directly with the IT providers.
Yeah. What about drones? Is it an issue that the biggest drone manufacturers are now kind of all going to China? Is that anything that we need to be?
Well, we're certainly very concerned about what potential competitors may be looking at and their access to our own technology. But drones are something that have changed the character of warfare. They first came out in the 1990s, late 1990s, employed by the Air Force, and now they've and a lot of folks didn't think much about them. They thought it was maybe a gimmick.
Yeah.
But now they've exploded, and the Army is using them. We are procuring for our soldiers the drones that can do surveillance day and night, that can fit into the palm of your hand or in the backpack on your back. And I just think it's the way of the future. In short, if we could send a drone somewhere, an area of danger, and not risk a soldier's life, why not do that first before you commit a soldier to the area?
All right, the last thing I want to ask you about is Austin. Obviously, That's part of why we're here. So why isn't this in D.C.? Why isn't it in the Beltway where you'd expect it to be?
Well, if it was in a traditional place, a military fort, or even in D.C., it would get smothered by bureaucracy. It would be trapped inside an installation. It would not have the access it needs to really the innovators, the entrepreneurs, those great young minds that you have down here in the Capitol Factory. And so Austin is one of those cities that is a great hub for innovation. And we look far and wide. We started off with 100 plus cities and narrowed it down to this one because of all the attributes it brought. And I think, again, what Capitol Factory is doing, what you have here, is a great example of what we want to be able to do, is to tap into that ecosystem, make sure that we are either reaching out to them with what our needs are, or asking them to bring us solutions, or thirdly, give folks the opportunity to show us technologies and let us figure out how we might be able to apply them. Right. Those are the three ways that I see that we want to operate differently, and that's why we're trying to come here outside of our traditional fences and garrisons and installations, if you will.
Well, I was happy to hear you say in your remarks earlier today to Mayor Adler that you're still committed to keeping Austin weird as well as we grow.
Yeah,
well,
I said to somebody, we won't make you too green though if you don't make us too weird.
There you go. So. We'll make it work. I won't touch on that, but I was pretty impressed with where he went with all that. Great. So you saw a couple different demos today. Last question, as we walked around, saw different startups and things that they're working on with defense technology. Any of the startups that we saw earlier today that stick out to you that might be worth commenting on, that are interesting, something about it that stuck out or anything like that?
For each of them, I saw a potential. I mean, the young man with who's working a lot of data, manipulating data to figure out
new knowledge,
information threats. I mean, I could see applications there. We just had a chance to witness the team that is working on exoskeletons. I mean, certainly that's an area where we're already investing. And even the first team we met with, I mean, there are just applications abound, but the chance to come here and just kick around ideas, as you and I did with each of them, may lead you in even a different direction. So that's what we need to do, and on a daily basis, not at some big annual trade symposium. We need to be doing it on a daily basis. And that's what the people who are going to be at this command are committed to doing.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for choosing Austin. Welcome to Austin. We're really glad to have you here. And we're just so excited to see what develops out of this. And I really do believe that 20, 30 years from now, we're going to look back on this as a inflection point for Austin that really changed it in a good way.
Thanks, Josh. So I completely agree. It'll be folks like you and others and the people you attract at the Capital Factory that will help us make that big change. So thank you very much.
Great. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Austinpreneur. To ensure that you never miss an episode, subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast player. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.